So I started my career as a chartered accountant and now like managing healthcare. So it's been from numbers to, I can say numbers to life. Initially, I did bit of investment banking. I worked with Schroders. Then I moved to Infosys. In between, I did some kind of insurance. So I was working for one of the Lloyd company of London for the reinsurance broking.
What are the right questions that people can learn from this today that they can ask? What will be a great takeaway for them?
So people will have to ask what kind of a fertility experience the consultant has, how many cycles they have performed, what kind of a pregnancy percentage they have delivered. Very, very clearly. Same thing for the embryologist. I think people do not know the embryologist. They think that they are some lab technician. Embryologist is equally important. So what kind of a qualification or what kind of experience the person has who's sitting inside the lab, who's not even visible to you. On the infra side, you can again have, 3 or 4 parameters. What kind of equipment you have, what kind of incubator you have. So in a lot of states, now our total fertility rate is below the replacement.
Yes.
Right? So
we just checked. We did some study in Thane.
Yeah.
The Thane's fertility rate is lower than, so his population is degrowing.
So I say all the southern states, especially like Karnataka, Andhra, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, these are all below the 2.1 is like married women having 2.1 average number of children is where you can maintain the population. A lot of states are running below that.
What would be the minimum investment required to start an IVF center for, even as a minimum level of IVF center? What's the range
So
between?
For a good IVF clinic to establish, you need roughly around 4.5 to 5 crore rupees.
4.5 to 5 crore rupees. I'm Amit Gandhi and I'm so glad to have Shobhit Agarwal from NOVA IVF. You're watching Healthcare Tribe. Shobhit, thank you so much for coming on Healthcare Tribe. You are today the CEO of NOVA IVF, but you had a pretty interesting career in multiple facets. Before we go ahead, can you just introduce yourself a little bit and then have some questions following up to that?
Thank you, Amit. Thank you for inviting. Yes, so very interesting for me too. My journey has been very, full of evolution. So I started my career as a chartered accountant and now like managing healthcare. So it's been from numbers to, I can say numbers to life.
Yeah.
And it's been very, very interesting. So, and there's been, a lot of good things I can talk about. How it has moved from, managing a so like writing a P&L to managing a P&L.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yes.
So you started you're primarily a CA, right? And from an education functional perspective, and you did spend a lot of time in finance, obviously, and you had academically quite a strong CA background, finance background. You have gold medalist in CS and then CA, and so hugely CFA, and so you are a pretty deep finance guy. And my experience has been that on a lighter note, when you are a chartered accountant, right, you are able to. I always joke around with my finance friends, and is that you are able to tell the problems very well, but never the solutions. And then you move but you have an interesting journey. You moved from a finance to actually a role where the buck stops at you, where you have to be the solution provider. So how has this journey been? What made these functional transitions? What were the challenges, some of it? So if there is a CA watching it, they know how to kind of make a career beyond pointing out the problems that people have.
Right. So I'll tell you little, in the past. Yeah. And I always say that, in today's generation, kids, they're very clear about what they want to do, right? How do they want to build their career? What do they want to study? How do they want to, scale up whatever they want to do? For me, it has been very different, right? When I was studying in grade 8, so I wanted to go for either engineering or medicine, right? I was very, very keen either to go for medicine or engineering. My dad, he was a graduate commerce.
Okay.
So very quickly he put me into commerce. I think the whole background was like, it was very expensive at that point of time to look for some coaching, etc. So he put me very, quickly into.
Oh, so he, on the contrary, to taking you to engineering or medicine, he actually put to commerce. That's nice. Who was interesting.
Who will foot the bill of, all coaching classes for engineering and medicine. He put me into commerce. And that's how I started.
And where were you? Where did you grow
I
up?
was in one town of UP in Bareilly.
Oh, wow.
Right. So, and that's how my commerce journey started. So I did my graduation from Bareilly and then I moved to Delhi. I did my CA. I did my CS with gold medal, CA with 8th rank in India, etc. But I think and then I got placed well initially after doing my CA with the rank, etc. But that's something I didn't like. I like playing with numbers, but I didn't like, writing numbers, writing accounts, auditing, etc. I didn't like it. So
Still, you managed to score so well.
no, I'm saying I did pass. I did do
You didn't pass, actually. Pass with flying colors.
yeah, in the exams. But I'm saying after when I came to
Actually, application of it, you were
to
not.
the professional life, I didn't like it too much, right? So then I kept on moving from A to B to C to D. So if you look at my career, I was initially I did bit of investment banking. I worked with Schroders. Then I moved to Infosys. In between, I did some kind of insurance. So I was working for one of the Lloyd company of London for the reinsurance broking. Then I moved to Infosys. Infosys initially I joined in the finance department, and my boss was Mohandas Pai at that point of time. In between, I went to US, worked for Goldman for 3 years, and doing some consulting there. But 2005, I came back because I didn't like IT, I didn't like technology there. So I came back in 2005 and I met Mohan. So he told, Shobhit, what do you want to do? I told him, I want to do something which is close to engineering.
To engineering?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he told, why don't you?
So you wanted to be an engineer? But you wanted.
Yeah. So he told, why don't you start handling infrastructure? And when he says infrastructure, it is a hardcore construction of the campuses, which was his portfolio at that point of time.
Wow.
So he told, I have
Absolutely not related to anything that you have done.
absolutely not related to whatever I've done. He told, I have seen you, you have worked with me for 3 years. I know you will do well. I told Mohan, I've not done it. I don't know. Absolutely no issue. Even say we spend that point of time, Infi used to spend around 1,500 crores a year
On
on the infrastructure, on building the campus.
1,500 crores a year on building infrastructure.
Yes. So he told him,
Building new infrastructure.
new infrastructure.
Wow.
So he told even if you save me 2%, which I know for sure, there will be 30 crores.
30 crore.
So that's how I came into. So I can tell you, I can read the drawings much better than any architect. I can read PhD drawing, I can read AC drawings, I can read civil drawings, I can read structural drawings. So I worked with almost all the big architects of the country.
So in a way, this was your first role which was completely outside your domain. The roles that you've done earlier, though the industry might be different, investment banking, but all were basically roles based on your strengths of CA.
That's right.
Isn't it?
That's right.
All were merging from your basic competency of finance and accounting and all of that. But this one had nothing actually to do with it.
Yeah.
Of course, your CA background would help from a costing perspective and saving and all that. But the main chunk of the job is actually different than...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you took that plunge
I did that.
because of your initial interest in engineering.
That's what I feel now.
Yeah.
Right. So I did that for a couple of years, and then eventually I moved to procurement, supply chain of Inki, and I was heading supply chain of Infosys when I left in 2012. So that time I portfolio was roughly around $500 million. That's what the Infi purchase for that. Yeah. So 1,500 crores.
In a way, your quest to do something different, and Mohandas Pai's trust on you kind of changed the entire dynamics for you.
That's true.
Yeah. Sometimes people make those kind of yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So in the meantime, Mohan moved to Manipal.
Oh yes. Yes.
Right. So he moved to Manipal Group, and that's how I moved to Manipal Group.
Yeah, I was about to ask you how did you move from Infosys to Manipal? It was very unusual, and now I get the link. Okay, so Mohan took you there.
Yeah.
Great.
So 2012 again I met him, and this is a very interesting story. So when I met him, he told me, "Why don't you come join me again in Manipal?" I told Mohan, I want to be entrepreneur. So he said, "What do you want to do?" I was the entrepreneur. How much money you have? I told, I have ₹1 crore kind of thing, whatever I had in Infosys stocks, etc.
2012.
2012. Then he taught me a new concept at that point of time was semi-entrepreneurship. Okay. He told this company, which is just incubated, Ranjan has incubated, I have put money in this. IDFC Private Equity has put money into this. I will give you the equity stake at 1/3 of that valuation, whatever IDFC has put into. You come and run the company. Again, I believe that you will.
What was the company doing?
The company was into student housing. We were trying to build a company into student housing, which is like very close to youth housing, which we see.
Okay.
Yeah.
So again, in a way, infrastructure.
In a way,
so it was a combination of your infrastructure work that
work also. And he told you build the company and you build as the entrepreneur. We will meet you only in board meeting every month, not beyond that.
Lovely. Yeah.
So I accepted it, and I started in 2012. And I built this company from ground zero to 11,000 beds. And it was picked up by Goldman Sachs Private Equity in 2017. So 5 years I worked for that company.
Wow.
Built that. And
what made Goldman Sachs take that? Like what was the motivation to do that?
So it was a profitable company, and it was...
So it was basically doing housing for the students, and you would sell that infrastructure to someone who would run an operation,
So
like
you were
hostels.
You were running the hostel.
You were running the hostel. It was a kind of service and infrastructure business.
We were trying to create a very university agnostic student housing. It's a very equivalent in US and Australia and European countries.
So you did that. So where does healthcare come?
Yeah. So when I
But Manipal has healthcare, of course.
Manipal has healthcare, but I was not involved.
Okay.
That. So 2017, when this company got sold, that time I met TPG, one of the partner in TPG.
Oh yes.
And they had created this platform called Asia Healthcare Holding,
Right.
which is kind of a buyout fund.
Yes.
So they were looking for somebody to run or expand the business.
Vishal Bali does.
So Vishal Bali is who's my boss. So 2017 I joined that platform. At that point of time, so there are 2 or 3 objectives this platform was created, and it was 100% owned by TPG at that point of time. One was that they want to get into a single specialty hospital. Second, something.
But you got to TPG Connect is because TPG bought the stakes in.
No, so TPG was also investor in Manipal.
And they saw you there.
So they saw me there.
And they took you in the healthcare.
The healthcare.
Wow. You've been impressing people, I'm sure, a lot.
So yeah. So as I said, that AHH they were building this platform, which is single specialty, a scalable model, and they wanted to take implementation risk or operational risk because we wanted to buy all startup companies at that point of time. So they were So I joined as a head of business development in 2017, and there were two investments which were being considered at that point of time. One was into oncology, and one was into mother and child. So motherhood is not our brand, and American oncology. So there were two early stage companies which we acquired.
So your role was to identify such opportunities, or what? Yeah.
So identify
Investment
opportunities also to expand. Once you acquire them,
operational.
to expand them. So like mostly like organic and inorganic growth. So when we acquired motherhood, we had 3 centers in Bangalore, 3 hospitals in Bangalore, and then I went on expanding it in Coimbatore and Mumbai.
Yeah.
So we acquired most of them were greenfield.
Yeah.
So we expanded them.
Yeah.
In 2019, this opportunity came, and we were evaluating NOVA, and this was the larger acquisition because it was some 18-19 center running at that point of time. And then I took a decision to move back to my earlier role of operating the company. And 2019, I took over as a full-time CEO of NOVA. So that's how the journey
happened from. So help me understand, what are the 2 to 3 things you feel very honestly that really helped you to get noticed from the decision makers to take such plunges or such bets on you? In a way, people have taken bets on you, and correct me if I'm wrong, right? People have taken bets on you when your background was reasonably different. They saw you, they saw something in you and took a bet in you, and you've just expanded your capabilities to make that happen. Now, what are those 2 to 3 things? I'm not asking what are the 2 to 3 things that made you successful, which we'll come to, but what are the 2 to 3 things that when you were in those roles, people noticed in you that you think helped you for them to take bets on you, right? And you think that really helped you.
Right.
I am trying to understand, while you were in other roles,
Right.
what were those qualities? And probably I should ask Mohandas for this question, but because I am right now not having an access to him, I'll ask him when I get him on a podcast. But in your opinion and perception, what were those things? For example, Mohandas Pai gave you this roles.
Yeah.
Similarly, Vishal Bali must have seen you in TPG and then said, "Oh, why don't you come here and do this?"
Yeah.
What were those things that you did that gave you that kind of visibility? Because where I'm coming, this question is coming from is people who are in today, say, functional roles. You are a great role model for those who are in functional roles, be it finance or even other functional roles,
Right.
who want to expand themselves beyond that, right? And people, unfortunately, fortunately, perceive you from what you've done, not what you can do. In most of the career, right? Because that's what they're visible to. And many a times you are actually capable of doing much more than what you have done, right? In life. But to give you that window, you need to demonstrate something for others to see it as well. Of course, it's great that they had the ability to detect it, but you also have to demonstrate something to give that. What do you think you demonstrated that really helped this transition?
I think if I think very carefully,
and it will be perceptual. It might not be accurate, but it's your perception of what happened, right?
So I think 2 things. One is, how do you look at the picture very holistically? Like, one is your role, right? Are you looking beyond that? Are you going extra mile? So I think in all the roles which I did, I went extra mile and I looked from a very owner perspective. Right?
Owner mindset.
Right. So, for example, I'll just tell you one example. When I joined TPG, my role primarily was to expand the business. Right. So when we acquired Motherhood, I immediately started looking for acquiring or doing some greenfield, all those things. And then, not only do that, because there was a full-time CEO who was running the mother, not only acquisition of those companies or those hospitals, but also to, bring them to a level that it can be handed over operational to the person who's running it.
Perfect.
So I think
So one is the owner mindset really helped. Yeah.
similarly in
And what else?
so I'll tell you one example in Infosys also. So in Infosys, since we were doing, so I did roughly around 25 million square feet of the construction overall over a period of 5-6 years. So what I realized is that the way it was working, that they were architects, they will come and present the design to Mohan and even to Murthy. Murthy was very passionate about looking at design, buildings, campuses.
Oh, is it? Yeah, Narayan Murthy.
Very passionate about, and they will suggest few specifications, right? And when they suggest some specifications, so for example, the tiles, right? And tiles will be like what, 5 lakh square feet, 6 lakh square feet for a building, right? And then Murthy will sign it with a permanent marker. It becomes very difficult for me at that point of time to negotiate with the vendor, right? Because vendor knows that this has been selected by the CEO of the company. I as the head of infrastructure do not have any role in negotiation anymore, because I don't have any choice.
Yeah.
And those are very unique tiles. So I was like trying to beat that. What should I do? So I went to Morbi. Right, I went to Morbi to see one plant. Morbi is the largest manufacturer of the tiles, and then I visited a couple of factories and then figured out one factory which I could see that this passed my QA, QC, all this quality parameters, etc. And I told that person, the owner, the Patel owner, I told, if you deliver the tiles without visiting any architect, without bothering about your payment, what can you give me the best rate? You don't have to bother about any corruption, anything. So, and he gave me a rate of 45 rupees at that point of time, which I was otherwise buying for 85 rupees.
Seriously?
Right. So those kind of thing, which is
It was a huge saving for.
Yeah, which is beyond your duty, right? So, and that's how I got the head of procurement of supply chain.
Oh, I think that's a great example. It's an example of a demonstration of what actually value you created, and it just gave you this wonderful example actually. Yeah. So that's great. So now moving to more of IVF, which is what you currently are completely, and before that, of course, was the movement to healthcare so it was completely an accident that you get into healthcare because of TPG in a way? Is that fair to say that? But then after that you have stayed with healthcare for a significant number of years, if I'm not wrong, like 10 years almost, right?
No.
8 years in healthcare. How do you compare healthcare industry versus all that you have seen till now? Anything I spent most of my life in healthcare, so sometimes it's difficult to compare other industries, but you are great positioned to kind of give, how do you see these industries and their careers in this industry? Any peculiarity, or fundamentally everything is same? So
I would say this is the industry which I like the most, though I have worked for long period here now. It's very, very close to human life. Right, and I have worked into mother and child. I have worked into oncology. Now I have worked into IVF. All the space. So you get a purpose here right now. So I think the largest difference I'm seeing here between now and earlier career is the purpose. I think there's a large purpose which I'm finding when a couple goes out of NOVA Center with either being pregnant or with a baby in hand, that says me that what I'm doing is the right thing. So there's a huge shift in the purpose. and to human life. So
No, that reminds me. So now going to even more details on IVF, right? By any chance, have you seen the movie? You might have actually. Joy. Joy is a movie. You should. If you're not seen 100%, you should see. Because Joy is a movie made on how was the first IVF done, technology behind it, and the social conditions in which they had to struggle politically to allow that project and technology to happen. It's an English movie. It's a fantastic movie about what technology can do at that time, but they have done in the context of Stigma in this 1970 setting when that happened first time and IVF was made successful, and there were attempts to kill them to kind of because there were a lot of religious and other. The world has moved a lot since then, but still, of course, there is something around this topic which has many social implications as well. Just for the audience, if you start with what is IVF, and then we will delve into really the other aspects of IVF, the clinical and the non-clinical aspects of IVF. But what is IVF really?
So, in vitro fertilization, where you basically fertilize the embryo or a sperm and egg into a basically outside the womb. So basically, when the couples are not able to conceive through the natural process, IVF helps them to conceive, outside outside the body or in a lab, and we create the embryo and then nurture them for a few days and then put it back to their uterus, and then they take the balance journey themselves.
So tell me and help me understand, right? As IVF, unlike many other clinical conditions, has more choice involved in a way, right? So, for example, let me give an example. If you are having a heart attack or a cardiac disease, there are 4 or 5 things that you need to do, which you have to, if you want to tackle it. Right? There's not choice of saying that only whether I want to do it or not. Not much of a choice if you want to save your life. While IVF is completely a choice whether I want to go through this route and have a baby at all. Right? The fundamental questions rise. Why should you do an IVF? And those are the questions that the family goes. So there is a lot of emotions. If I can say that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there are far more emotions and family dynamics involved in a decision of IVF than something else, than many other medical conditions. In a way, how is that in current times? How much of that impact business? What are some of those factors that really determine IVF, adoption as well as barriers, and what would the big ones be?
So it's more to do with the awareness and education. In our society, specifically I'm talking about, it was a taboo. And it is a taboo to some extent.
Is it still a reasonably big taboo doing?
Not in the larger cities,
But in tier 2 you see that.
Cities that still is taboo. People have a very different perception of IVF. One, like, will the baby be normal or not? That's one large perception.
Which is a concern, which is a natural concern, yeah.
Second concern is, like, if somebody has IVF baby, is it his own baby? Because
that's a very difficult.
Because in IVF there are solutions where you have to take help from either donor lady or a donor man, right? So as a society, you don't want to be known that if you have taken donor help, right? In terms of, because in our society, apna khun is very important, right? Your own DNA is very, very important.
Is that one of the still biggest factors, social factor in even now, right?
Absolutely.
And is that one of the biggest reasons why people don't go for adoption?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Apart from the fact that the adoption process is not very easy, by the way.
Very easy. Very, very difficult.
Which is what I've learned. When,
Complicated.
yeah.
So since there's no clarity if you have IVF baby, if it is your own baby or it is through the help of a donor, that's the large reason people don't want to disclose that this is my IVF baby, and then they don't want to be seen that that I'm going for a IVF. That's one reason. Second reason is that in our society, it is still seen like your fertility issues is still seen to be, a large question mark on your personality, right? So, like if you are say like diabetic, or if you are, even if you have cancer, right? You will not mind to tell to people that I have diabetes or I've got a high blood pressure, etc., and I'm getting a treatment. But in the case of fertility, I think it's still a stigma, right? So to say that, I am not fertile or I need fertility. So that's, I think, one large portion. Plus, as I said, the outcome is also not very clear, and you don't want to explain to people this is my own baby, etc.
Right.
So these are 2 or 3 large stigma factors which really make business difficult, make this science difficult. But I think now I'm seeing a huge change. A lot of people are getting educated. They understand that the whole implication, etc., etc. So there's a huge change, and it's being well adopted.
But how hard is for the woman to go through the IVF process?
Not very
much.
difficult. Not much. It procedurally, like a female goes through the hormone insertion for 8-9 days, which is like intramuscular. So basically, we try to to grow some follicles, and then there's a very small procedure, though it is under general anesthesia, when you go intravaginal, and then you extract the eggs, and you take the eggs, and then those are given to the lab. Similarly, you take sperm from the husband, that's also given to the lab, and then embryologist, they basically fertilize the egg through the sperm and make the embryos. We try to make multiple embryos because some embryos will live for 2 days, 3 days, and some will go to a stage called blast. And if you're good 4 or 5 or 6 blast, then you have good chances of pregnancy.
But generally, my understanding is the success rate is 40-50%. Is that right? Or
so this is also very hazy number. To be honest, worldwide it is like around 40%.
Okay.
We kind of deliver approx 60% plus. This is a combination, the success rate. Like if you look at Indian markets, and especially the market 5 years back, 10 years back, 8 years back, the success rate, people, or like, success rate will be higher if you do. So, okay, let me take it in a very different. So there are 2 types of, product for IVF. One is when you are taking your own sperm and you're taking your own egg, which is your own prodigy, your own DNA. Second case is when you're taking help from a woman because you're not able to produce eggs, or your eggs are not good quality. So you're taking, eggs from the donor lady, or you're taking sperm from a donor man, or it could be both. Yeah. Now, when you take the eggs from a donor lady, she is a proven donor. Means she has already gone through a pregnancy and already delivered a kid. So means chances of getting eggs and creating a embryo is much more predictable because she's already delivered a kid. Vis-a-vis your own, because you're already going through the process of natural conceiving in last 3, 4, 5 years, and you're not able to conceive. So if in my overall cohort, if my contribution from the donor cycle is higher, my success rate goes up. right? Because if this delivers 70, this delivers 50, and this is 60% and this is 40%,
Right.
right? So your
Success rate go up.
so just the rate of pregnancy or just the success rate is very misnormal. You have to understand what kind of, IVF the clinic chain is providing or clinic is providing. Are they really putting effort to provide the self cycle?
So that's another question I had, really, and that's an interesting one, which at least I do not know very well, but I aim to know now, is what is the difference between 2 to 3 IVF centers, right? In the sense, what is a average IVF center, what is a good IVF center, and what is a great IVF center? What differs in this, really?
Okay. So two very clear perspectives. One is clinical excellence. I think clinical excellence plus clinical infrastructure, which is the lab quality, they both put together define a good IVF.
But what determines clinical excellence?
The experience
Of the
clinician.
So and is the clinician so the one thing that we discovered was the clinician is not necessarily just a gynecologist.
Necessarily.
He is a gynecologist, but not just only a gynecologist. There's more training that goes into that. What's the difference between, say, a gynecologist versus a gynecologist doing an IVF? What kind of skill sets are?
So post gynecology, you have to go necessarily through a fellowship into fertility. Now it is a law. So earlier it was practice. Now it is a law. So
We have to have that.
you have to have that, and you have to have
In India, it's a law.
in India, and you have to have 3 years experience post your fellowship
To actually
to start
start a
practicing
IVF.
as a full-fledged IVF consultant.
Okay. So is this number very few in the country? Is that a barrier yet, or
So that's a large constraint.
as a constraint?
So, like many times we come across questions that, what is the largest challenge, right? So the number is large challenge. Like if you look at a number in both sides, so like the clinician as well as the embryologist.
What is the role of the embryologist and their background versus the clinician?
So embryologist again, now as per the act now, embryologist has to be a master into clinical embryology, and
There's
there's
a different subject taught for
yeah.
but the clinical embryologist is also a gynecologist earlier, not necessarily.
Necessary.
Oh,
Right. So you have to be a master in clinical embryology, and then again you have to go through a 3-year sprint
right.
to become a full.
And each IVF center necessarily has to have a gynecologist
And
who has that fertility expertise, qualification, and a clinical embryologist. Both is minimum condition to become to have an IVF center. Okay, great.
So like if you look at say like 2 years, 3 years back, there were around 50 or 60 clinical embryologists, master in MSc clinical embryology, who were coming out of the colleges. Now I think number has gone up. This is like 300-400 now. Similarly, the clinician.
So in the country, in case, so in the country, what would be the approximate number of IVF gynecology specialists?
What will be the number? They will be 10,000 plus now.
10,000 plus people would be there.
I'm not very sure about that.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. And a clinical embryologist?
Embryologists are very low.
Very low.
Yeah, because
So that is even a bigger constraint because you need both in equal numbers.
you need both.
Right.
Now, I think as I said, now it is
Getting more, but still, it will take time, right? To okay. So okay, let's go back to this. So you need a experienced person. These two people and the combination of their work determines the clinical excellence. Am I fair to say that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Plus
Anything else?
plus infrastructure.
Now, what is the infrastructure that is?
So when I say infrastructure is a lab, so lab is, so just think about this way. So lab is nothing but you're mimicking the boom.
Yeah.
At what temperature, what kind of protein, the particles.
And this must be like a technology, some stuff that you buy from someone. as a lab, right?
Yeah. So they're
Who are the major players?
So the most of them are international players.
International players who make this.
Yeah. So
And you buy that, right? So if you, are there varied quality in this as well? A lot of varied quality, like
absolutely. Yes.
okay. So that kind of determines the quality of the place as
So
well.
you can build a lab from say like 50 lakh rupees to 2 crore rupees.
Same capacity,
Same capacity. Same like
just the quality parameters are good.
parameters.
So that might be a big change between my earlier question of average, good, great.
Yes.
Uh,
So I'm saying good clinical clinical talent in embryologist, and the good quality of the lab infrastructure.
So as a consumer, right? As a consumer, if I'm looking for IVF, if I want to, have a IVF kid or a process, how do I determine good? I have no constraints economically, for example. How do I really find the difference between good and average?
So honestly, very difficult because there's too much of noise in the market, and there's very little information. Everybody claims to be the best.
Exactly. I mean, why wouldn't everyone, right?
So there are 2-3 ways. One way is that typically you will know your fertility issues through your gynae, because probably like you will be seeing your gynae, and then gynae will be doing some kind of a preliminary treatment for you, say like IUI or like ovulation induction, etc. At some point of time, they would say that yes, you need help in fertility. You need a help of a fertility expert. So one thing could be that if you have a good gynae, which is your family doctor or somebody like who can really direct you to the right clinic, because they are the people who will
But to be honest, right, that's a very, very messed up. There are immense amount of trust issues between the patient and the doctor in today's world.
Yes.
Considering that if the doctor refers, there is an interest in the doctor to send it to a particular place. Now, of course, your trust with the doctor varies with the experience, and you're right. That is one credible source, can be one credible source of reference, but is not a very certain or confident. It doesn't give a lot of confidence to many people who don't have or have not built that relationship with the gynecologist for many years, right? Because people are migrant today.
Yeah.
Say I'm staying in Bangalore, I have a great relationship with, trust with this doctor that they will suggest me, right?
Yeah.
But when I'm doing this, actually I'm in, say, Hyderabad or Pune, I've migrated, I'm in a new environment. It's very difficult to really go by one source. Though I understand that's one source which can be credible, but what else? What else is the factors that really...
So you'll have to do a bit of research to figure it out. One is like of course there are nowadays a lot of reviews available. You can really scan through the digital world and figure it out to some extent. But I think the one is the experience of the clinician as a fertility consultant, not as a gynae, but as a fertility consultant.
I think that's a good one. So at least check the fertility experience.
How many
Yeah.
cycles they have performed, what kind of a pregnancy they have delivered in the market. Right, that's one very large thing. Second thing, you have to also look at what is the trend coming out of that clinic. Is that, are they really with you in terms of giving the right choice to you, in terms of going for a self cycle, or they are pushing for the donor cycle. So for example, if you look at the gynae today, you will see that most successful gynaes are the gynaes who are standing with you and looking for a normal delivery. If you as a patient are looking for a normal delivery, right? And I'm seeing that there's a large trend. Like if the patient is happy to go for a normal delivery, and a gynae is kind of helping that out. Yeah, she's a very successful gynae.
This is a very interesting thing that so Dr. Kishore Kumar was on my podcast earlier and a few months back, and I asked him about, though main topic was mother and child, but I asked him about fertility as well. He said the biggest thing that couples, it was on lighter note, but the biggest thing the couple should do is have more sex. There will be less fertility issues. He says, I said, wow, that seems like a very good solution. But yes, of course. I mean, the gynecologist, one is you are saying qualitatively whether the gynecologist is really rooting for you to have a normal delivery. I think that's one parameter.
I think that becomes a large parameters for the gynae. Similarly, in the case of IVF, like what kind of percentage do that clinic has for the cell cycle versus the doors?
So that's the interesting one. This is insightful because people doesn't know about the cell cycle versus. So one is see the proportion of cell cycles done, and ask that question really when you are really evaluating different clinics for doing that. So that's one point. Is there a way to assist technology as well?
Yeah, very difficult. To be honest, very difficult.
It's too complicated.
Too complicated for a common patient or common person to understand what kind of infrastructure. A few things you can ask, like they can look at, like say, like for example, do you have AHUs, air handling units, like which kind of control and total environment, what kind of incubators you have. So how do you choose, right? So if you're looking for IVF, you will typically go to 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 center, right? If you read well and you know what are the right questions to ask, right, then you can definitely be
exactly. And I'm trying to figure out what are the right questions that people can learn from this today. That they can ask, which will be a great takeaway for them.
So people will have to ask what kind of a fertility experience the consultant has, how many cycles they have performed, what kind of the pregnancy percentage they have delivered, very, very clearly. Same thing for the embryologist. I think people do not know the embryologist. They think that they are some lab technician. Embryologist is equally important. So what kind of a qualification or what kind of experience the person has who is sitting inside the lab, who is not even visible to you. On the infra side, you can again have 3 or 4 parameters. What kind of equipment you have, what kind of incubator you have. Do you have AHU, which is very, very important.
What is AHU?
There's an air handling unit which kind of make it particle free.
Okay.
Permissible limits,
And what questions should they ask to find out a good versus a bad AHU?
AHU or not AHU?
Oh, so some people don't have an AHU. So that's a great question do you have an AHU in your facility? Is a great takeaway kind of insight. Right?
Fourth question could be which is combination of all, could be like, what kind of, so like, for example, you made a embryo, right? And if you don't have a great clinician and a great embryologist and a great infrastructure, you will not be able to survive that embryo for, say, that 5 days or 6 days, right? 4th or 5th day, embryo become into a position called blastocyst. So you can also figure it out from the people asking the right question, how many percentage of transfer happen which are day 5 transfer. Because a lot of people, if they have a little weaker infrastructure, they would prefer to do transfer on the 3rd day.
Okay. So this impacts from an outcome perspective. This is very, very complicated and interesting. So if from an outcome perspective, this can impact the success rate, right? If I'm not wrong, correct me.
Absolutely.
Does it also impact the kid?
No.
Fortunately, that's
it is not.
Kid is not.
So just think about it. Say like
it's primarily the success rate is where this is.
So just think about it. You have 3 embryos created, and you transfer all the 3, say for example, on the day 3, and right, and you know for sure only one of them will survive, right? Versus day, or say like none of the 3 was going to be survived. Just take example that you have 3 embryos, none of them is going to survive. But you transferred on day 3, As a clinician, because the patient does not know, you completed the job because you made the embryo and I transferred it to you. Now it is up to you. Your body accepts it, not it. Right. Versus taking them to day 6 for day 5, and I know that none of them are fit. Right. Now the responsibility falls on me because I could not create an embryo to transfer.
Yeah.
Right. While the situation is exactly the same, but this is more ethical.
Yeah.
Right, because I'm not shifting my responsibility
To
somebody else,
right.
and who's already distressed, right?
Yeah.
Not having a baby. Now you create an embryo and then you transferred it, and then you expect that, and you know that this will not survive, and then your responsibility is being shifted.
So segueing into really the economics of IVF and the business of IVF and the delivery of IVF, more on the business operational side, if I take a move from, how big is the IVF industry in India?
So the latest report which says there are around 300,000 cycle, IVF cycle which takes place in
300,000. And 300,000 cycles would mean 300,000 IVF babies?
300,000 cycles means 300,000 pickups, air pickups.
Oh, right.
It's called OPU, ovum pickup.
Okay. Well, only 40 to 50 will convert.
Only 40 to 50% will convert
to. So 150K would be pregnancy.
But if you look at potentially
and which is economically how big? Like what is per
cycle
cost?
Approx 1.5 lakh to 2 lakh rupees.
1.5
on an average.
Okay.
Right. So that's the size. But if you look at overall potential, overall size, which could be for the country like India, will be much larger.
Yeah, but currently the market size would be 300K into 1 lakh approximately, which is 300K into 1 lakh. You probably can be a good quicker to the maths, but that's a significant market size. Yeah.
But if you look at say US market, or if you look at Europe,
of course the price points are very.
No, I'm just talking about the overall
volume of IVF.
So roughly, say like in US, around 4% deliveries take place through IVF.
What would be the percentage in India?
India is like 0.3 or 0.4%, between 0.3 and 0.4.
Almost 1/10.
Almost 1/10. So,
but still the actual number might be closer because the population is huge. We give birth to Australia every year, so 25 million people. But the reason is the reason good that we are more healthier, or is the reason cost and affordability and adoption is much lesser?
Absolutely bang on. So it's not the problem is lesser here. Problem is almost equal. Right? 1 out of 6 couples go through a fertility issue worldwide.
Okay, and in India, 1 in 6 people have a fertility issue.
Yeah, married couple goes through.
That's quite high.
That's quite high. So, and very, very small percentage comes for the treatment, and very, the very small delivery which takes through IVF. It's 0.3, 4%. And India, as you rightly said, the market size is very small because of the affordability. Because most of the European countries and US, they are like sponsored program.
So, but if I do a little more, come from business background, so if I go more into the economics of this, right? So you're saying about a lakh and a half is the price point for the consumer. The India affordability is less, and I'm trying to see a big chunk of your cost, not the price, a big chunk of your cost is the clinician, I would imagine.
Is the medicine.
Medicine,
clinician, and the lab, all the 3.
These are 3 costs. What would be the approximate cost distribution in this 3?
The medicine and the lab cost and the clinician is almost equal.
So it's 30%, like 33% cost each one holds.
Plus all your fixed cost, middle.
No, of course. I'm saying variable cost.
Correct.
Like variable cost will be this three will, if 100 rupees is spent approximately 35 in each of. Yeah. The technology piece, I understand the American and us both are paying almost the same price. Because the cost,
Yes.
if the MLCs who are selling might be a little less here, almost same. But the clinicians earn in rupees, so it must be much cheaper than the outside one. The medicine is India, or are the drugs used generally again imported?
Mostly imported,
Imported.
but the price points are very different.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to come to is that the affordability factor in India, is there a make in India element in it that can make it more affordable to people? Because many a times when the costs are in dollars, you can't do much. It's very expensive for the population because they're earning in rupees. But is there anything else, and what is it that can happen to make this more affordable?
So I'm saying this is already kind of a dollar discounted price. So like if you look at US, it's around $6,000 to $10,000. In India, it's around $2,000.
Yeah.
So I'm saying this is
Already that
the denominator. So
there's not.
there could be a little bit of decrease.
It's primarily because of the willingness of people to pay on this.
Because this is self-funded, right? This is neither insured. So insurance
In US and other countries, is it insured?
all is sponsored, 100%.
That's probably the biggest difference. So would you be, if you have to talk with government, would you be talking to make this insured? Right?
So we are speaking to government and a lot of friends now to bring it in as part of part of the insurance program. And if you look at total fertility rate, I'm sure you will be knowing total fertility rate. Yeah, thank you so much. So in a lot of states now our total fertility rate is below the replacement rate.
Yes.
Right? So
We just checked. We did some study in Thane. The Thane's fertility rate is lower than. So his population is degrowing.
So I say all the southern states, especially like Karnataka, Andhra, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, these are all below the 2.1 is like married women having 2.1 average number of children is the where you can maintain the population.
Yeah.
Right. So now a lot of states are running below that. So I think a lot of governments are taking some interest.
So is that the rationale behind them going for insurance? Would that be? Because it's very difficult to explain how insurance should cover this, because it becomes a very individual choice to do this. Then there has to be a rationale which is economic wise, I'm saying. Yeah. Socially, of course, there is, but economic rationale to cover this under insurance means there has to be some value creation overall, right?
Yeah.
And the debate of that, does that rest on the point that the population decline is not good from a socio-economic perspective? Is where does this argument really go?
Of course, like because say like if you look at our demographic, in another 16 years will become a aging population, and then there'll be too much of a burden on the economy in terms of supporting elderly people, etc. So unless until you create a balance, so I think governments are all analyzing that and realizing it also. Unless until they really maintain, if not decline, there will be a huge problem.
Because it's a delicate topic, right? One can argue that you don't need more people in as populous a country as India. Why should someone pay for doing that?
What's the balance?
But at the same time, there is a demographic dividend, and you don't want to get into a China situation where the tax of the balance has gone wrong. So it's a very
there are a lot of thoughts which is going behind, and a lot of governments. So like for example, very small one small example. Say like Sikkim government, they are very very. So their fertility rate is I think less than 1.5. They're very sharply declining population. So to keep that the population etc. They have started sponsoring the free IVF cycles. So the government sponsor free IVF cycles for the citizen of Sikkim. So there are a lot of efforts,
So going back to the business and the economics of IVF, few more areas actually to explore there. Is in the first place, is the demand for IVF being catered by the current supply, or is there a gap in terms of the supply is much lesser than demand?
there's definitely a gap.
Demand is much more than supply.
Yes. And that's what we see, that largely the tier 2 town and the tier 3 towns are undersupplied.
Yeah, but there is a demand in those places,
Yes.
despite the social structure.
So, and if you see the industry, the large growth in the last couple of years is coming into a tier 2 and 3.
Is doing business in tier 2 very different as a NOVA IVF versus doing a business in one? From a business perspective, is the consumer psyche, profile, pricing, cost significant different? Should the model be similar? Do you, coming to NOVA, for example, you're one of the leading chain, right?
Yeah.
So do you have a different model for a tier 2 place versus tier 1, or all NOVA IVFs are similar?
So in terms of clinical protocols, in terms of embryology protocol, in terms of the lab, etc., we try to keep as much as standardization, right? But of course, there's a lot of local element there in terms of patient selection, in terms of patient acquisition, in terms of pricing. So pricing might not be same in
Absolutely.
Jalandhar versus the pricing in Delhi.
Your costing is also not same.
Costing will also not same. Right? Costing will also be. Though
At least that 33% would be different.
Yeah.
Other two probably not.
Your left side, your
middle side is almost same.
doctor side is little lower, and your fixed cost is little lower. It's not too different.
Yeah.
But there'll be a difference of at least 10 to 15% in the prices.
Right.
In tier 2, tier 3 cities versus.
But economic viability wise, even a tier 2 is viable and is not an issue from a business perspective.
Yeah. So only thing which we are very conscious about is to expand in the location where we see the clinical excellence, clinical talent available. For us, it's not just a matter of expansion. It's a matter of choosing the right city where you have right talent available, right requirements, etc. So
what are the 2 to 3 things the ecosystem should do, which would mean governments, players like you, and in general the clinical community as well as business community, investment community, right? The entire ecosystem should do for this to go in 2 ways, right? One, from a catering demand supply perspective, and also from a quality regulation perspective. I'm sure there are a lot of ethical dilemmas in terms of this topic. Is not as easy, right? It is entirely so there is more standardization and the consumers get what is right. From that perspective, who should play what kind of a role according to you?
Government has a large role to play here. So, for example, if clinic A say that I have a 60% success rate versus clinic B say that I have 60% success, need not to be both same, because what denominator you are using, what numerator they are using could be different.
Yeah.
Are they using the success rate for the entire system or only the clinic, for the month or for the year or overall? So those
statistics and live.
Larger role is to bring some kind of a trial. I think larger role can be played with the government to bring transparency.
In what areas?
In terms of making a consumer aware of each and every parameter of the clinic. So like, if again I'm taking example of Europe. So there's a registry, national registry, where each and every information is filled up. So as a consumer, you have 100% visibility.
Can we replicate that here?
You can. And that was the whole idea, this ART Act which came 3-4 years back. The whole idea was that the government will collate all the information and then starts publishing this information so that as a consumer, you can figure it out, which is you asked in the beginning, is the average clinic versus a good clinic versus a clinic, right? So that was the whole idea. I think it is taking little time for government to implement that, but hopefully we should be there.
So you are saying actually government can categorize, saying this is A level, B level, and C level IVF center.
Government can put the information in the right perspective.
Yeah.
Government can take the right information and
Because we are suffering from this regulation issue overall in healthcare.
that is it.
Right? In the sense, I today do not know as a consumer which ones are. Of course, those who have made a brand over a period of time, we have a sense. But we don't really have this as a category A level or hospital versus B level versus C level, which because there's no regulation as such which categorizes it.
I don't think government can do that too. Government is very difficult. Again, the kind of system, kind of people, etc. But government can bring the transparency in the system.
This has this.
They can always say my numerator is equal to your numerator, and my denominator is equal to your. So there's a standardization in the information which is passed on to the consumer. Because right now there's no standard.
No, I think that is one great point. Of course, on the consumer side, it has been very difficult. I always imagine, can we have a Zomato in healthcare, which says consumer gives rating based on their experience, but unfortunately that also has not been easy in healthcare to execute. There are people who have tried actually, but I don't think it's very easy. But fair enough. So coming back to again the business of it, what would be the minimum investment required to start an IVF center, for even as a minimum level of IVF center? What's the range between?
For a good IVF clinic to establish, you need roughly around 4.5 to 5 crore rupees.
4.5 to 5 crore rupees,
which is infrastructure, which is.
And what would be the range, like minimum level versus?
So people can start.
Because a lot of mushrooming,
so you can start IVF center like in 1 crore rupees also.
You can.
Yeah.
So is that bigger range?
Yeah. So that's what we always keep on saying among ourselves. There's very low barrier in terms of the
low entry barrier in starting, and that's in a way a challenge as well, because coupled with no regulation on quality, is very difficult to determine which ones would do.
So initially, when the regulations were supposed to come, government had in the draft regulation had given a long list of the equipments, which kind of defines a good lab, like including air handling unit, including so many numbers of incubators, including all those things government has prescribed. But when finally the final act came, it was not there.
Yeah. But so coming back to other elements, right? So we are talking about as a business this, but as a leader of a particular firm, NOVA IVF, how do you see this market shaping up? And how do you see NOVA IVF? What would be your growth strategies that you are looking at, and what are the areas in which you see this industry moving now? So going a little bit on the future of NOVA IVF as well as IVF industry, not just NOVA IVF, but
So my thought is, one is clinical excellence is going to define who is going to be a long-term sustainable provider, right? So if you look at NOVA's journey, and I think there could be multiple parameters to that. So very naively we say that's pregnancy rate, but the cell cycle, as I said, cell cycle, which is your own sperm, which is the result of the excellent clinical practices, excellent infrastructure, and the complete confidence of the patient, right? Because you are giving a patient a huge decision making, right? So that kind of defines into a cell cycle.
Yeah.
So those could be a defining moment.
I think one of the biggest insight for me, particularly in the conversation so far, has been this whole concept of cell cycle and checking what cell cycle happens in that. That's, I think, great point. But so the other thing, right? And before I want to delve more into the future of IVF. But before I go there, one more thing that crossed my mind was for success rate, right? How much do you think? And it might not be in the interest of IVF business, but it will be in the interest of fertility for sure. Is how much do you see a play of integrative care? Delivery, in the sense use of Ayurveda and other stuff to improve the success rate, and having an integrated care, which is the IVF knowledge, gynecology, embryology, allopathy, whatever the standard, and the practices of Ayurveda being integrated to improve success. Do you see that trend happening? Do you feel there is a need for that, or do you think it's still too immature and naive to be developed?
So my strong belief is that any science has to be evidence based, right? At least I'm not aware of what kind of evidences do we have in the other sciences apart from the allopathy or IVF. But of course there are a lot of things which could be adopted. Say, like as you asked in the beginning, how could there be a better lifestyle? That could be driven by few elements, weather, etc.
Absolutely.
Right. What could be your right food habits? What could be your right yoga habits? What could be your
exactly?
There could be something when you are preparing yourself for the parenthood, either like naturally or IVF. There could be some inputs from there, but treatment, I would.
Yeah, treatment probably not, but there is this. You say that's very interesting. I also agree, evidence based, but to an extent, when I go beyond that and peel the onion a little bit on that, is the reason that allopathy has a lot of evidence base is because of the institutional development primarily in US and West.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
Might be there's an opportunity now to do more institutional development and build evidence of integrative care in the other sciences.
Oh, yes.
And that might be one way of us leading certain care and protocols versus what it happens in other way around.
Probably, but because there has to be
a business and clinical execution for,
because all these evidences in like other sciences were developed by many institutions. I am not very sure like how
it's not as developed here. No, I agree with that. I think there is definite work. But now getting into the future of IVF, right? One is I understand you're doing something around AI in Embryo, and help us understand what that is and how do you think that will shape the future.
So my feel is that we can have multiple intervention in the treatment, which could be supported through AI. So if you look at the treatment, after you diagnose the patient, right? The first part of the treatment is like, what could be the stimulation protocol? When I say stimulation, how do you stimulate through the hormones to the patient to basically mature the follicles? So that's one large area which we are working. How can I define which are the best stimulation protocol which would yield into the higher pregnancy rate? So that is one area where AI would come into a picture, or which is being worked upon already. Second is, once the extraction of the eggs is done, and once the fertilization is done by the sperm, right, by the embryologist, and the embryos are formed, right, then the entire taking care of the embryo, that could be also done through the machine. And third very important thing is that when you are transferring the embryos, and say assumingly you have multiple embryos, the selection of embryo, which we have already gone live, you have already implemented, is through the AI, where you are selecting the embryo based on the images. And we have like millions of cases where we have based on the images, we know that which embryo got into implantation.
So this would improve the success rate.
You are trying to reduce the time to pregnancy.
Oh, it will reduce the time to pregnancy as well, cycle time,
Certain.
and also the success rate, or it will improve the success rate.
Just very layman's perspective. If you have 3 embryos, right, and assumingly only one is implantable, right, selecting that at the first instance will reduce your time to pregnancy. Either you'll transfer first, not success.
And today you actually have to try that out to know whether it is
Not that bad.
not that bad.
No, you've had a check, but right now the embryos grading is done by the experienced embryologist.
So the quality of that experience. So it's kind of an AI that enables the embryologist to get better,
Or to like.
which is what a lot of AI is doing. And
When I keep on saying about the clinical excellence, it's also one of the part.
Right.
The better, more experienced embryologist, he will also.
So are there any players who are doing work on this already, building AI, or you plan to do that in house, or
we have tied up with a Korean company
to build that, build AI?
Yes. So we have just implemented it. We are doing it for entire cohort. We are doing for entire all your patients.
No.
It's little too early because typically when you make embryos, you don't transfer the embryos on an immediate basis. You freeze them.
Yeah.
And after 2 or 3 months, when the body is normalized, because body has already gone through the hormones insertion, you don't transfer it immediately. You transfer after 2 or 3 months. So our embryos which have been selected now, they will be transferred after 2-3 months. So I think the good result is will come to know after 2 or 3 months because we just implemented it last month.
Right. So if you look at from technology perspective into the future, and we'll come to the business aspect of future as well, but technology and clinical care perspective, one is the AI angle. Is there any other angle that is developing a lot that can change the future of IVF?
I think the patient handling is one large thing which I feel that we are working on that. So like in terms of standardized counseling, in terms of standard financial counseling, in terms of education, I think which is a very large piece which is being worked upon by a lot of people, and we particularly are working pretty much on that space. So that once the patient comes inside, like how do I ensure that irrespective of my person, right, who's sitting in counseling, irrespective of my doctor who's sitting in counseling, there are a standard education which could be imparted so that patient is much more informed and they could ask the right question, and that could be done through some automation, through some technology intervention, to educate the patient. That is one part. Another thing which is happening is like right now the fertilization of the embryo is done by the embryologist, right? That is also getting automated. There's already first baby which is born through the automated ICSI. So machine has done the more precision insertion of the sperm into the egg to fertilize it.
So there is a particular company who does that?
Yeah, so this technology which has been developed.
It's commercialized?
It's commercialized. Oh, first baby is born recently, last month, I think.
In India?
No, not
No.
For India, it's a little too costly.
Okay.
Right? So, India, the labor is much cheaper than manpower. So
it might not.
But that's the future.
That's the future. Yeah, the technology cost will come down. Yeah. So. Great. So from a business perspective, right, we said 300K into 100K, most probably that's like $3 billion market. From a business perspective, do you see a lot of consolidation happening in this industry?
Certainly.
Yeah?
Certainly. Because right now, market is very, very fragmented. There are a lot of small players. They get to a stage and then they get plateaued there. Because it's difficult, right? In the business, there are 2 parts. One is the acquisition of the patient, and second is patient to decide upon that you are the best provider and them to take services from you. In both the sides, patient takes a lot of time. So patient has choices while selecting the clinic, and patient has also choices when deciding upon the clinic, right? So they are taking a lot of time to decide. So, and there's a huge digital war or whatever you can call it. There's a lot of noise in the market, and it's becoming more and more challenging for smaller player to acquire the patient.
Is the customer acquisition cost quite high today?
It's very high.
Yeah. What would be the kind of?
It would be roughly around 7-8% of the overall
Business to acquire customer.
yeah,
Of the revenue.
of the revenue.
Oh,
It's quite high.
quite high. And it's primarily because of a lot of education issues and a lot of awareness issues as well as noise that you were talking about.
More noise.
It's more of noise in the sense.
And if you see the industry, people kind of fight on the price point and the success rate. Why?
Yeah.
If you look at again, this is one of the point which we did not discuss. Typically, for a consumer, for a couple, almost every clinic will cost almost similar. The cost of IVF, if it is 1.5 lakh rupees, is 1.5 lakh rupees. You will see multiple offers. IVF for free, IVF for 39,000. Right? Finally, patient. So this is one large issue which I think.
So you mean the promise and actual is not. So that's quite a big issue.
Which is something government has to look at, because everybody is talking about prices and the consumer is not even aware of what could be the right price, etc. And finally, everybody.
But what can the government do here? If some government official is watching this podcast, what would that thing be for them?
Stop the misleading advertisement.
But that's very difficult to execute. How do you know what is misleading? And
so you see a lot of advertisement which are being, put in the code or other ways, and government agencies do a lot of watch, right? But this remains quite unattended.
It's not so you think it's possible to kind of put a monitoring mechanism here?
Yes.
Oh,
One could be not to put price. Very simple. And we take a lot of pride to say that we are the most transparent pricing company, because we are the only company which gets the complete chitta in the writing.
And to an extent, coming from a more free market economy kind of thought process, which I'm not saying is right always, but the development of brand puts a certain kind of accountability and responsibility, which automatically kind of regulates certain behavior.
100%.
Right? And so, in a way, what you're saying is consolidation and brand kind of will be the next steps that will happen and bound to happen. And probably people will start relying more on the brand, and of course the brand will have certain responsible behavior.
Absolutely.
Is expected from them to kind of do that.
And this is completely bound.
Right, completely bound on. But so in that sense, for NOVA IVF, one of the growth pillars will be M&A always for the next 4-5 years.
At least now it will be.
Yeah.
So we have done few small.
How many centers is total NOVA IVF?
We have 120 centers which we are
across the country. And what will be the distribution among, say, top 8 cities versus others?
We are in 63 cities.
Wow.
63 cities. Almost would have covered almost all the cities. All
tier 2, tier 3 is covered. Kind of. Tier 2 at least is covered.
All Bhopals and Nagpurs and Jalandhar and Ludhiana and Salem and all those.
What would be the difference between a Bangalore center and a Indore center or a Bhopal center?
Not much.
Not much. Size
of
the infrastructure?
30% in term. So again, potential, and we expect a larger city like metro city like Bangalore, etc. will do much higher volume. Then the OPD size will be a little bigger. Labs are very standard. Labs, because it's a very small labs, you don't need very much lab space because they're only.
But each center will have its own lab.
Each center lab. So we have a hub and spoke model. we have around 70 odd labs and around 40 odd feeders.
And would like you would be the biggest chain?
We are the second largest.
You're the second largest chain in terms of numbers.
Yes.
So, from a competitive play perspective, there would be what 3 or 4 big ones. That's all, or
So, on the national chain level, there are 3 or 4.
3 or 4.
Yes. But then there are larger regional plays.
Yeah.
Of Tamil Nadu have like 5 or 6 trains which are Tamil Nadu based chain. Andhra we have Andhra based chains.
So the industry has quite quickly matured to a certain extent. This took many years for the say imaging world or
Yes.
diagnostic world to come to this stage.
Like last 5 years.
It's quite a yeah. So one of the growth strategies coming back you were saying is M&A. What would be other ways? What's the future of NOVA IVF from the next 4 or 5 years?
So I feel that there's a continuous demand in terms of other cities. So still say like we keep on studying multiple cities. So one is we see
Go ahead, yeah.
yeah. So we see a large we see a large part of the country which is still not covered.
Right.
Right, lot of tier 3 cities. We also have a lot of states which are not covered. So for example, we are not in Kerala. We are not in Rajasthan.
Oh, okay.
Right. So
Any particular reason, or is just that?
no particular reason. Yeah. So we are, but those are like large potential. So if you ask me, NOVA future potential, one, we'll keep on growing our footprint. As I said earlier, more based on the clinical excellence, the clinical talent, presence, etc. So we'll keep on growing our footprint.
Yeah.
We see still a huge role. That's one side. Second, I see
You still see a lot of geographic expansion possible. Even after having in 63 cities, you see a geographic expansion as a growth pillar.
Yeah. Second large thing I see is the expansion in the offerings, which I said,
Which is very interesting.
which is egg freezing.
Egg freezing, okay.
I also meet a lot of gynaes, right? And I recently met a gynae in Ahmedabad. She told Shobhit, I'm seeing a very different trend now. I'm seeing kids or the couples who are not very sure about parenthood at this point of time, right? Or they are, either they don't have partner or they're not even sure about partner, or they are not sure about
Whether they want to have, yeah. Whether to have and when to have.
and to have and whether to have, right? So,
There's a new social.
yeah, and then she's saying Gujarat is one of the most progressive state compared to the country, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Kerala and all. So she's saying that I am seeing a large trend of egg freezing, and she's counseling a lot of her patients for it.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense, isn't it? I mean, increasingly more number of people can make the choice.
Something. So one is like your footprint growth. Second, your offering growth. This plus like I also feel that this will also become a more of a true preventive healthcare, right? So till now IVF is very reactive, right? Like you are not able to conceive, then you went to your gynae did some preliminary treatment, and then you are finally referred to IVF chain, right? I think IVF also as a business has a lot of preventive role to play, right? How to conceive, how not to become infertile, how to start catering to the patient in the top of the funnel.
Yeah.
When they are like 1 or 2 years old in their marriage,
Absolutely.
or even before. Fourth thing, which is a little too premature, I would say, is the expansion in the clientage, right? The single women, the same-sex couple, right, etc., etc. So I think that is also bound to have
Happened.
in
Very interesting.
6 years.
Very interesting.
So, as a business, if you ask me,
these are the definite areas.
3 or 4
not that I want to put you in a corner, but still, would you ever think of expanding into mother and child, or is too saturated already?
No, it's not too saturated. We always thought that once you are in a specialized, healthcare business, you need to be very, very focused. And we feel that, again, not to point out to somebody, that somebody who is into mother and child and fertility both.
A lot of trend that is happening nowadays, right? It has, for mother and child chains, IVF has become like one of the growth additions in their strategic playbook. Not necessarily yet panned out, but that has been one of the ways. But
I have my own comments. I feel that that's not super focused for them.
yeah, it's not, obviously. Yeah,
So
the main is still mother and
might
child.
make a lot of sense as a business because your infrastructure cost is cut. You don't have to create OPD. You don't have to create OTs. You have to just create a lab, and you can roll out your IVF program.
Yeah.
But from the concentration, from the clinical excellence perspective, from the research perspective, from multiple publication perspective, etc., I think you are not focused because that.
So, yeah. So, in a way, it's safe to say that today, Shobhit Agarwal is more biased to build IVF business within the IVF
Absolutely.
category than going into mother and child and.
And any business where you are not contributing more than 15-20%, you will never focus.
No. At the fag end of one, so on a lighter note, there are a lot of movies that get made on this topic. One of them was Good News.
Yeah.
Which had a very funny, at the face of it, but quite serious issue of mixing up
The gametes.
Is that reality? Does that happen? And how do you really
So,
deal
very,
with it?
very interesting, a very good question. And again, coming to your older question, which you said, what is the way of identifying a good clinic, average clinic versus the excellent clinic? So yes, technically yes, the mix-up can happen because in the lab you have multiple gametes which are being worked upon. Diagnosis, same thing could happen. Like you can put somebody's report and so.
Yeah.
Right?
But that's a little more irreversible.
Yeah.
This is kind of
Right.
quite.
So in NOVA, we had something called double witnessing system. Okay, double witnessing system means if I am transferring an embryo of a patient, say like A, as an embryologist, I'll call out the name. I'll read it that A husband name this date of birth this. I'm transferring, like this embryo is being transferred, and that will be double witnessed by a nurse and a doctor. So I would say the chances of mixing becomes quite negligible or quite low, right? Similarly, when you're working on the gametes also, then they are double witnessed, right? That
Double witnessed by whom?
by the embryologist and
Okay.
there are 2 or 3 embryologists in the system always. Now that has been replaced by the technology. So in our lab, all the labs right now are under electronic witnessing. So each dish, we basically, when we place an eggs or embryos or sperm, we place in the dish. That dish is a disposable material, right? So that dish has a RFID.
Oh.
So there's a dish which has eggs,
Wow.
a dish which has a sperm. Now both the dishes have come, and both the dishes are come to a micromanipulator where the embryologist is putting the sperm into there. Now, once they brought on the workstation, if both the dishes don't belong to the same couple, then the alarm will come.
The electronically is detected through that RFID, whether it's although in the manual part and the chance of error is.
So completely.
But this is a different technology that has to be installed there. So someone has to invest in this technology to do that.
Absolutely.
So it's not safe to assume that all will have this.
Very few.
So shouldn't that also be one of the questions that what people should ask in the initial place? Right? We add one more, right? AHU ho gaya, ye question ho gaya.
And whether you have electronic witness,
Electronics way, right? Because that's
very
kind of
important, very, very pertinent question.
right.
and very important. So,
Yeah, because it's okay when on one side it is Akshay Kumar and Kareena and Diljit and Kaira. You don't miss whichever comes, but at times it might not be like that. So there is good news behind good news.
and
You are saying that there is
transferring the embryo.
a technology that's
When you're transferring the embryo,
yeah.
that embryo is matched through the RFID tag which is given the patient.
How much is that investment?
Per cycle, it costs something around.
Oh, it's not a fixed investment. It is the cost behind.
Fixed investment plus it costs.
What would be the fixed investment?
Per cycle, it costs around 4,000 to 5,000 rupees. It's like
Reasonable.
2% of the
Not huge, but reasonable.
reasonably.
And for the fixed cost in terms of technology.
One is there's a large system.
Yeah.
So we have developed an indigenous system. So we invested in the technology.
Oh,
Yeah.
so this is your technology?
So there are third party.
Also.
There are multiple solutions, but we have developed our own in-house technology. This
Good. So there is some good news behind good.
absolutely.
We can avoid that. So great. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Shobhit, for being here. And this was fantastic understanding. I've understood more about IVF in this last hour than probably ever.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Amit. Thank you for having me here.
Thanks.